He left the stage quickly and righted himself of his mummery and passed out through the chapel into the college garden. Now that the play was over, his nerves cried for some further adventure. He hurried onwards as if to overtake it. The doors of the theatre were all open and all the audience had emptied out. On the lines which he had fancied the mooring of an ark, a few lanterns swung in a night breeze, flickering carelessly. He mounted the steps from the garden in haste, eager that some prey should not elude him, and forced his way through the crowd in the hall and past the two Jesus who stood watching the excuse and bowing and shaking hands with the visitors. He pushed onward nervously, feigning still greater haste and faintly conscious of the smiles and stares and nudges which his powdered head left in its wake. When he came out on the steps, he saw his family waiting for him at the first lamp. In a glance, he noted that every figure of the group was familiar and ran down the steps angrily. "I have to leave a message," down in a George Street, he said to his father quickly. "I'll be home after you." Without waiting for his father's question, he ran across the road and began to walk at breakneck speed down the hill. He hardly knew where he was walking. Pride and hope and desire, like crushed herbs in his heart, sent up vapors of the maddening incense before the eyes of his mind. He strode down the hill amid the tumult of the sudden rise and vapors of wounded pride and a fallen hope and a baffled desire. They streamed upwards before his anguished eyes in dense and maddening foams and passed away above him till at last the air was clear and cold again. A film still veiled his eyes, but they burned no longer. A power, akin to that which had often made anger or resentment fall from him, brought his steps to rest. He stood still and gazed up at the sombre porch of the morgue, and from that to the dark, cobbled laneway at its sides. He saw the word "Lots" on a wall of the lane and breathed slowly the rank heavy air. Let it horse piss and rotted straw, he thought. It is a good odour to breathe. It will calm my heart. My heart is quite calm now. I will go back. Stephen was once again seated beside his father in a corner of the railway carriage at the Kingsbridge. He was travelling with his father by the night mail to Cork. As the train steamed out of the station, he recalled his childish wonder of years before and every event of his first day at the Clongowes. But he felt no wonder now. He saw the darkening lengths slipping away past him, the silent telegraph poles passing his window swiftly every 4 seconds, the little glimmering station, manned by a few silent sentries, flying by the mail behind her and twinkling for a moment in the darkness like fiery grains flying backwards by the runner. He listened without sympathy to his father's evocation of Cork and the scenes of his youth. A table broken by sighs or draughts from his pocket flask whenever the image of some dead friend appeared in it, or whenever the evoker remembered suddenly the purpose of his actual visits. Stephen heard, but could feel no pity. The images of the dead were all strange to him. Save the Uncle Charles, an image which had lately been faded out of the memory. He knew, however, that his father's property was going to be sold by auction in a manner of his own disposition. He felt the world give the lie rudely to his fantasy. At Maryborough he fell asleep. When he awoke, the train had passed out of the Marlow, and his father was stretched asleep on the other seat. The cold light of the dawn lay over the country, over the unpeopled fields and the closed cottage. The terror of the sleep fascinated his mind as he watched the silent country, or heard from time to time his father deep breath or a sudden sleepy movement. The neighborhood of unseen sleepers filled him with a strange dread, as though they could harm him, and he prayed that the day might come quickly. His prayer addressed neither to God nor saint began with the shiver as the chilly morning breeze crept through the chink of the carriage door to his feet, and ended in a trail of the foolish word which he made to fit the insistent rhythm of the train. And silently, at intervals of 4 seconds, the telegraph poles held the galloping notes of the music between punctual bars. This furious music allayed his dread, and leaning against the window ledge, he let his eyelids close again. They drew in a jingle across Cork while it was still early morning, and Stephen finished his sleep in a bedroom of the Victoria Hotel. The bright warm sunlight was streaming through the window, and he could hear the din of the traffic. His father was standing before the dressing table, examining his hair and face and moustache with great care, craning his neck across the water jug and drawing it back sideways to see the better. While he did so, he sang softly to himself with a quiet accent and a phrasing. "'Tis youth and folly makes young men marry. So here, my love, I'll no longer stay. What can be cured sure must be endured sure. So I'll go to the Americree. My love, she's handsome. My love, she's a bony. She's like a good whiskey when it is new, but when it is old and growing cold, it fades and dies like the mountain dew." The consciousness of the warm, sunny city outside his window, and the tender tremors with which his father's voice festooned the strange, sad, happy air, drove off all the mist of the night's ill humour from the Stephen brain. He got up quickly to dress, and when the song had ended, said, "That's much prettier than any of your other come-all-yours." "Do you think so?" asked Mr. Dedalus. "I like it," said Stephen. "It's a pretty old air," said Mr. Dedalus, twirling the points of his moustache, But you should have heard Mick Lacy sing it. Poor Mick Lacy, he had a little turns for it. Grace note he used to put in that I haven't got. That was the boy who could sing at Come All You If You Like. Mr. Dedalus has ordered drisheens for breakfast, and during the meal he cross-examined the waiter for the local news. For the most part they spoke at a cross purpose when a name was mentioned, the waiter having in mind the present holder, and Mr. Dedalus his father or perhaps his grandfather. Well, I hope they haven't moved to Queen College anyhow, said Mr. Dedalus, for I want to show it to his youngster of mine. Along the market day the trees were in bloom. They entered the grounds of the college and were led by the garrulous porter across the quadrangle. But their progress across the gravel was brought to the halt after every dozen or so paces by some reply of the porters. Do you tell me so? And is a poor pottle bladed? Yes, sir. Dead, sir. During this halt, Stephen stood awkwardly behind the two men, weary of the subject and waiting restlessly for the slow march to begin again. By the time they had crossed the quadrangle, his restlessness had risen to fever. He wondered how his father, whom he knew for a shrewd, suspicious man, could be duped by the servile manner of the porter, and the lively sultan's speech, which has entertained him all the morning, now irritated his ear. They passed into the anatomy theatre, where Mr. Dedalus, the porter aiding him, searched the desk for his initial. Stephen remained in the background, depressed more than ever by the darkness and silence of the theatre and by the air it wore of the jade and a formal study. On the desk he read the word "features," cut several times in a dark stained wood. The sudden legend startled his blood. He seemed to feel the absent student of the college about him and to shrink from their company. A vision of their life, which his father's words had been powerless to evoke, sprang up before him out of the word cut in the desk. A broad-shouldered student with a mustache was cutting in letters with a jackknife seriously. Other students stood or sat near him, laughing at his handiwork. One jogged his elbow. The big student turned on him, frowning. He was dressed in loose grey clothes and had tan boots. This video is taken from Navi Daria's page.